Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Cheng, partner at BasisSet. We are a seed fund investing in AI and automation with $300 million in AUM. A big part of BasisSet is cultivating communities. And we're bringing together a few communities here today. One is the Dev Founders community. It's a community of founders of developer tools. And the Persistence is a community of women execs and founders in tech. And we're bringing folks together here because the topic of how to get product market fit is a very common one. So we're really excited to have a great room here. And today we have Rai with us to talk about getting to product market fit at Carta. Rai has been a product leader at Carta for the past 5.5 years. He joined when it was still called eShares. Do you all still remember that? It's so wild.
All right, let's do this. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and then we'll jump into things. I have to ask the inevitable question. Can everyone see my screen? It's like the popular question. All right, cool. Awesome. All right, I'm going to be talking, as Chung said, about finding product market fit, which is actually hopefully a very fun topic that is on a lot of people's minds, and certainly it should be if it's not. Oh, also it's 2022 because I can't remember what years it is. A little bit about background about me. As Chung said, I was at Carta for the last a little bit over 5.5 years. Most recently as VP of product, overseeing a lot of the product org, design org, R&D operations org as well. I saw somebody in the chat a moment ago mention that they were the first and only PM where they were currently. I was actually our first product manager as well. So I can commiserate with you on what that looks like. I love the product market fit space. And actually that's where I tended to gravitate during my time at Carta. So when things would start to get to the scale stage, I'd be like, oh, I want to go find this new problem and go try and find a new marketplace. So something I have a lot of passion about and quite enjoy. Before that was at a number of different tech startups in the Bay Area, as well as before that in investment banking. And then more recently do some product advisory work and angel advising or angel investing and things like that. One or two final caveats about me. I have a corgi in the room on the floor behind me. So if Amazon delivers a package and your eardrums just like get a corgi bark, I apologize ahead of time. It might happen. And then the second one is I'm trying to work with my ring light here. It is failing against the sun behind me. So sorry for the weird silhouetting going on right now, but we'll make do and continue on. All right, in the presentation I'm going to go through, we'll try and keep it kind of short and fun, hopefully. Really going to cover three main topics before the Q&A. The first is a little bit of the problem with product market fit, which hopefully resonates with you all. Secondly, it's, all right, well, product market fit's kind of hard. How do you maximize your chances for finding it? Because that's kind of that magical moment where your idea takes off and it feels like life becomes both a little bit easier and a lot bit harder. And the last one is, what are some of the disciplines you can use as a product thinker? And that's not exclusive to product managers, but product thinkers to maximize your chances of finding that product market fit. So that's a little bit of where we're going to be going. Let's set off with it. All right, so here's the kind of problem with product market fit in really simple terms. A lot of you probably start off with a really great idea, right? That's kind of how companies and teams get started. There's a brilliant idea, and you look ahead at this time horizon in front of you. And over time, your goal is going to be, how do I maximize success for what I'm doing? And I won't define success for you. It might be revenue, it might be user growth, et cetera. But over time, you want to increase that thing. A lot of people look at this problem as kind of linear, right? It's over time, I will be more successful. And there's some life cycle things that I'm sure we'll go through. We'll launch, we'll find that product market fit, then we'll keep adding new features. We might expand product lines, and then we'll get into all these scale problems. And if that were the case, there's a whole bunch of tools that exist to go do that, right? Road mapping software, data analytics software, starting to talk about microservices when you get to that point is always a fun one. But in this world, the atomic unit that you're solving for is really execution focused, right? It's, I know what I need to do. I'm just going to go do it. And you're assuming that the marketplace is going to pull these things out of you, right? I'm going to release this thing. I'm going to launch it. People are going to want it. And then ergo, I'm going to have to go to the next thing, which is adding new features that they also want. And then to the next thing, which is new products that they also want. And then scale because there's so many people. If that were the case, life would be really easy, right? Thinking of solutions to known problems is something that humans are quite good at. We're natural problem solvers. what is probably more true is the reality that looks a lot like this. Is you go, you have this great idea, you look at this great time horizon in front of you, you launch your product for the first time into the marketplace, and initially you see a spike, right? Hey, we did this thing, lots of people are using it, this is great. And then more often what happens is then that spike returns to some more normalized level. So you get a nice kick at first, and then it doesn't sustain itself. And I will tell you that can lead to a lot of kind of like existential questioning. Like, okay, what do we do next? What's supposed to happen? I thought we'd be on to adding new features stage at this point, but hey, this thing isn't quite where we need it to be. The good thing to remember is, particularly for pre-product market fit ideas, the path is not going to look linear. It's going to look wild, right? Some weeks you're going to be way up, some weeks you're going to be way down. You're going to be asking yourself questions constantly. Is this product market fit? Is this what they want? Do we need to launch again? Does this next thing happen? It can be kind of a confusing and scary time. And what it's really going to feel like in this case is you're doing a lot of pushing, right? I'm building this thing and we're launching. We're trying to push it onto users. I'm doing those calls trying to get people to bite. I'm going to do this one other thing to try and get that next deal, but the market isn't quite organically taking it in yet. And of course, unlike the guy who's happily marching up the nice linear path, this one can be a little bit more scary, because in this case, you're actually finding the right problems to solve. You, I'm sure, can figure out solutions to the problems, but actually getting those problems is quite hard. All right, so one of the ways that we approach it, and I kind of approach this problem, is you want to maximize your chances for finding product market fit and turning that push relationship that you have with your users into one that is much more of a pull relationship. And one of the ways I do this is I kind of imagine you have a target, right? Now let's imagine that target out there is this elusive product market fit that exists. You don't know where it is. You don't know quite what it looks like. You don't even know what the right problem is. What are the chances that you just fire thing off your idea and you hit it in the middle of the bullseye first try? I bet it's pretty low. And if you do this, like, congratulations, your life is going to be amazing. But most of the time, you're probably not going to do that. Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to take a lot of different shots over time. And each one of those shots will hopefully tell you a little bit more about this target, which way the wind is blowing, how far away is it, etc. Each shot is an opportunity to learn. And with that learning over time, hopefully that gets you closer and closer to solving that right problem that your users actually want, which is closer to the bullseye. And so really what you need to figure out is, how do you balance and create this discipline for taking as many shots as you can on this target, and balancing all of this learning that you have to do of finding the right problem, also with executing. And I still include execution here as well, because I'm sure many of you have investors and other stakeholders who are quite interested in execution as well, and knowing that you're on that path of progress. And so a lot of what I work with our team on looks like this, which is you have this wiggly path that you're going to be learning a ton on, but you break that path up with fairly discrete goals. And with those goals, you allocate a set amount of time to go solve problems. That in turn will create constraints for you, which will kind of force this problem solving ability. It'll provide that path for execution that'll say, at these guideposts, we're going to be in different places, but it doesn't prescribe what the solutions are going to be ahead of time. And so that might sound a little kind of vague. One of the best ways to describe it looks a little bit like this, which is, the first statement is what I see a lot of times with new teams. We're going to ship an onboarding float and we're going to sign up 10 companies, versus we're going to figure out how to sign up 10 companies. That first statement is really focused on finding solutions, right? That's kind of that execution mindset. We know the problem and the solution. The second one is, all right, we think we have a good idea of what the spaces we want to be in and what problems we should be aiming for, but we don't actually know what problem we're going to solve yet or how we're going to solve it. I've also found that this second one tends to be a little bit more inspiring and also a little bit more exciting for the teams that are working on it. Nobody really wants to just kind of be an execution machine writing JIRA tickets all day. You want to be solving lots of fun problems. And so what that looks like over time is that you're actually getting a lot of shots on goal as you're trying to solve this problem, getting closer and closer to that magical moment where you find the right problem, and life and work becomes that much more fulfilling and easier to do. And in this case, what I really focus on is the atomic unit of the team's ability to solve a problem. A lot of this comes down to the way that the teams operate and the way that you solve problems, more so, like I said, than being able to knock off a bunch of Jira tickets. In fact, one of the first products I ever worked on at Carta was one for our investor services team. And for the first probably like 16 to 18 months, all we did was set ourselves this goal of how do we sign up more users next month than we did the previous month. We kind of let the power of compounding take it from there. And I can tell you what you see on the Carta site today, which is around fund accounting and this tech-enabled platform, was not what we started with. In fact, we went through so many wrong ideas on the path to get there. I could probably fill a whole presentation with just the number of misses that we had. But the good news is we were really disciplined around what it meant to release something, test it out, understand it, miss, learn more, and move on. And for product market fit, there's not like a magical formula that's like, do this thing and you're going to find product market fit. It really is, how do you take the resources and the time and the team that you have, and you get yourself as many shots on goal as you can. And that discipline is really fun. It's really exciting. You'll miss more than you'll hit, but if you keep missing, you will learn more and you'll get closer to that eventual hit over time. It's pretty fun. So one of the questions I also get asked is, well, how do you measure yourself? Because everybody likes to know metrics at this point in stage in time. Two of my favorite metrics are honestly pretty simple. One of them is, are you shipping code, right? Every day you should be shipping something new. That tells me that you're getting new products out into the market. You're getting new things to users to test out. You're learning iteratively over time. And then the second one is, are you making progress towards that goal that you set? And if either of those two things look off, that's usually a chance for a pretty good discussion to happen. All right, so what are the skills then that you can use to create a little bit more of that discipline for yourself? And when I say product thinkers, once again, I caveat that is not just for PMs. This can be your sales team. This can be your marketing team. This can be your engineers. Anyone can be a product thinker and contribute to this process. And what I'll say is, when you look at some of the skills that you want, you really want to focus on kind of these two areas, which is, are you finding the right problem and are you setting the right goals? And the soft skills that I really try and emphasize more than anything else, and not soft skills, but just skills, are the ones you see here: empathy, curiosity, candor, and energy. I threw on some of my favorite characters from movies and things over time, just so easier to remember and see. And each of these things in turn will help you get a little bit closer to understanding if you're solving the right problems and if you're on the right track to product market fit. So I'll start off with an example for empathy. By the way, I'm going to let my corgi out because he's clearly at the door wanting to leave the room. So hopefully you all don't want to leave the room. The first one we're going to talk about is empathy, right? And this is like getting and knowing your users and market really, really well. One of my favorite examples I've heard, this is probably from 10 years ago. I was talking to a CEO and founder of a company that it measured the amount of sugar content in someone's blood. So if you have something like diabetes, knowing what this number is quite important to you. And they had a whole roadmap put together of all right, we're going to go solve this problem. We're going to make the most accurate, testing equipment on the market. And when they went out and talked to users, the first thing that they heard was, I want this number here to be super accurate, right? I need to make sure that my health, that I'm doing the best thing for my health, and accuracy is that most important thing for me. And in fact, every other company that was in this space was talking to users and hearing the exact same thing. So there was almost this like race on roadmaps to see who could create the most accurate number for testing the content of sugar in the blood. And yet this company took a slightly different approach. They said, rather than to just rely on these survey results, let's actually go stand in the supermarket and see and witness what people do when they actually make the purchasing decision. So not this abstract purchasing decision, but actually in the moment. And so they watched and they saw which things people selected and why. And they found a really interesting learning. Most of the users that they were looking at didn't actually care about having 2 or 3 decimal places of accuracy for this number. What they actually cared about was whether or not the zipper on the bag that the thing came in was large or not. And the reason for that is a lot of people who suffer from diabetes and other illnesses, they have quite bad arthritis. And opening these small containers can actually be quite hard. And actually access to the equipment and ease of use of the equipment was more important than getting that decimal place correct. And once again, this is a company that then took this learning and they created a really, designed a really friendly container to get to this equipment. And that actually was the thing that helped separate them from the pack. And it's one they wouldn't have learned unless they approached it with just a deep sense of empathy. I can tell you also from Carta, that's one of the insights that led to a product that we have now called Carta Launch. I'm not sure if any of the folks on here have used it or not, but it's a product geared towards helping really kind of companies in their earliest stages set up their cap table, use the Carta software, and use it for free. And the way that we found this was not by talking to our existing customer set on what is it that you want us to build, because they'd probably give us a whole roadmap of tweaks and changes to make. Instead, we actually went to accelerator programs and technology meetups, and we sat there and we were like, hey, let's sign you up for an account. And we could actually see the pain of what the cost of this would be to people. They would open their spreadsheets and show us, oh, this is how we're going to manage it now, because it's too expensive for us otherwise. And when you start to see and personalize that and hear the questions that people have, what you learn is new insights that can lead into a whole different product direction. So our roadmap instead switched from being like, hey, let's add lots of new features, to let's go and try and build something that's super simple that satisfies a new market that we have not been empathizing with before. The second characteristic that I think is a truly important one is curiosity, here shown by Sherlock Holmes and Watson. Once again, I'll use a Carta example for this one because I kind of find it to be interesting. For those of you who don't know what Carta does, we deliver a lot of cap table management software as well as investor software to help people organize who owns what. In this case, I've shown here some of our core users are CEOs and CFOs and law firms of companies, helping organize how many options and shares and convertible notes have been given out. And oftentimes when you would go and talk to them and you'd be like, what do you want us to build next? They would tell you, well, we use this for auditors, we use this for investor relations, we use this data for 409A valuations, stuff that we have to do. Oh, and by the way, we want to use it for this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. And once again, we took this very curious approach of, okay, this could be on one hand, one roadmap to go for, and this is really going to help, continue to upsell into the same marketplace. But are there different markets that we're not seeing? And so we asked a super simple question, which was, hey, it's great that you put numbers into our software around how much people own. How do you actually decide what that number is in the first place? Right? Super basic question. And they were like, oh, that's oftentimes comes from our HR team and our managers who are out hiring people. And so we went and talked to the HR and manager team and we said, how do you decide this number? And they were like, oh, it's crazy hard. Nobody knows how to do this in this space. Like, it would be so great if there was some amalgamation of this data that we could use so that we would feel good about the offers we're making, and also our candidates would feel good about the offers that we're making. And once again, that turned into a whole other product market fit type project around compensation planning. So from these very simple questions of what problems are you trying to solve and really listening, we're able to kind of discover these new insights that lead into new products and new initiatives and entirely new business lines as well. Another one to think about quite regularly is candor, shown by Hermione Granger here. And not everything that you do has to always be about solving and shipping out new products to the market. In this case, early on with our investor services team, what we noticed was it was actually taking us a while to ship things, right? We had these great plans and great ideas, but they never quite seemed to go out on time. And we were like, all right, did we solve the right user problem? We think we are. Our development cadence is actually pretty high. We're looking at GitHub and we're seeing lots of commits each day. But what it turned out the problem was our data model actually wasn't set up for us to innovate really quickly. And so our engineers were doing a lot of work, but the work they were doing was workarounds on our data model that was making it very hard for them to actually release new things to test all of these shots on goal. And so we had a pretty candid conversation with everyone in the room on like, do we think we need to fix this data model before we can go innovate more quickly and more often? And the answer turned out to be yes. that ultimately was one of the things that allowed us to take as many shots as we did in that short amount of time, is we were really disciplined about treating our data model as something that needed to be in really good order so that we could release a lot of things on top of it. We actually have a motto that was called data model first. The idea being that if you get that right, it's actually quite easy to build things on top of it. And when you get that wrong, you spend a lot of time doing other stuff as a workaround. And the last skill I'll quickly touch on that hopefully will help build towards that the discipline is really around energy. And what I mean by that is I showed these examples earlier where, the person walking up this linear path, they're all nice and happy, life is good. And the person who's on this squiggly path, their heads down, heads in or hands sitting in their chair, they're not having a good time. And in fact, I actually think the second one is the way more exciting one. Like if you're in the first world and you're just executing, that's not the most fun problem. It's when you're actually solving these things. And I can tell you, looking back on lots of products that I've worked on that were pre-product market fit and post-product market fit, the times that people talked about were actually the more difficult times. Nobody talks around that time like, hey, we went 100% on our Jira board. People talk about the time it was like, man, we didn't know what we were going to do. And then this insight came in. And that's the thing that really changed it. And so one of the examples I'll throw in on that was a lot of the software that we built includes lots of forms and different connections and things like that. And one of our workflows looked like this. It was you filled in a form about yourself, then you connected to an external integration and pulled in data. Then you would fix the data. And then at the end of it, you would see like a really cool analytics dashboard, right? And we were excited to build this, but like when we go through it, it didn't quite feel right. And someone in the room was like, it feels kind of boring. Like we're doing all of this work up front in order to increase the accuracy of what we show, but it feels like we're just putting this like great amount of onus on the user. What if we switched it where you connected to your API or you connected and integrated with this outside data system, you immediately saw something cool. And then after that, we asked you information to help tweak your result. So literally like the same steps in the workflow, but reordered. And suddenly that was this like re-energizing and exciting thing. And our users, they could tell that. They went from being like, I have to do all this work in this workflow to, oh, look, I already get answers. I see what the result is. And so literally the problem we solved there was not that we didn't have the right kind of steps. It's that we had the right steps in the wrong order. Once again, I could tell you that when you get people contributing those ideas in a very kind of like marketplace of ideas setting, it can be really fun. So these are some pictures that I took over the years of people just solving problems together. This is kind of one of the ideals to aim for. If you get that candor, you get that energy, you get that empathy, and you get that curiosity together, that's usually a great recipe for trying out lots of problems. Trying out lots of problems and finding the right one is ultimately what will lead to that product market fit and help you be successful. So the last slide in the presentation is this, which is finding product market fit is fun. It's hard. It takes a lot of work. It's aggravating. You'll probably have lots of nights standing in the shower, just like, what am I doing? I can't get this problem out of my head. But like I said, it can be a really fun one too. And with that, I can change it over to Q&A. Happy to expand on any of those topics.